Welcome back, dear friends, colleagues. Sorry you have to have me again behind this table. I have a very nice last round of panelists. We have a number of different, we go back, we went now to Ukraine, now we go back on the community sponsorship engagement. Because I think, like everyone said, we have to go back from the emergency to the more structured approach. And I'm very happy to have here Timo here, subject, I always say Timo, subject of the University of Utrecht Cities of Refuge Network and also Refugee Hub, who has done quite a lot of research on community sponsorship and city engagement. Very happy to have Enon-Baron, the co-director of the Amvita City Network, to have Gisela of the Assembly of European Region, and we have already seen, you have seen Maria of the UNHCR here in Spain. So we want to go back a little bit to this engagement part and what we can learn, because I think everyone has heard it's not an easy thing to engage regions and cities. Huh? There's nice examples that we have now in Spain, but of course the structures of regions and cities are different. It is not easy, but sometimes it works. So yeah, let's try to distill some of lessons learned, and also please, my dear participants, think about tomorrow. We want to make some lessons learned, some conclusions. How can we move forward? So use your brains in a very active manner and use the inspiration of these speakers as well. So Timo, we had a very nice meeting in the Netherlands, where you also looked at this engagement of cities and regions in inclusion of refugees. Give us some lessons learned and sort of the piste to move forward in this.
Thank you very much, Petra. I want to thank first the Basque government and ICMC for the invitation. There are two extremely unusual things. One, I present as academic here, and I think I'm the only academic in the room. Usually it happens, that I present to academic audience or to mixed audience. Here, I think there are no representatives of universities, which is very unusual. And the second thing, usually when I present, there is a representative of the local government that speaks for 5 minutes and then leaves. And then there is no one representing the regional or local authorities anymore, and academics speak to an not empty audience, but exchange between themselves. And here it's admirable that representatives of the government have been with us for 2 days and will be perhaps also tomorrow with us. I worked for the University of Utrecht for 4 years. I did a PhD research on cities and the reception and integration of migrants and refugees in Greece and Italy, my colleagues in other European countries. And indeed, we learned quite a few things, because we visited dozens of cities in these countries, and we spoke to mayors, we spoke to the public administration, we spoke to the civil society at the local level. And I would mention only 3 things, given the time limit that we have today. The first one, what I learned is that where there is a will, there is a way. In Spain, you mentioned that the asylum system is centralized. This is not exceptional, this is the rule in Europe. Cities in different countries can do very limited things, and believe me, in Greece, where I was, in reception they have no mandate whatsoever. In integration they have a very limited mandate. However, a number of cities did an amazing job in the last 7 years, and they still continue to do so. And perhaps you have never heard about it, but you have heard the negative side of the story, which has been mostly some policy developments at the national and European rather than the local level. The second point is that cities, what they did mostly in the last years was filling gaps. And here it's important to understand that these gaps, these are cracks in the system. There are a lot of cracks in the system which are artificially created on the one hand because of policies and legislation that intentionally let people fall through the cracks or even pushes them through the cracks in many countries across Europe. And what cities have to do is to face the problems within their own jurisdiction. So they intervened in any country in Europe, and you know much better than me what they did, so we don't need to elaborate on that. But what interested me the most in the research was not this reactive approach of cities, but the proactive engagement of some political leaders, administrative leaders at the local level. And I want to focus on this local political, administrative, and civic leadership that led to the positive changes that I faced in my research in the last 4 years or so. This thing I call interactive political leadership, and this for me was the key for the engagement of certain cities in progressive local policy making for asylum seekers and refugees. And this thing extended beyond the jurisdiction of the cities. We have a great example here in the Basque country, where we see cities that want to engage into not only local policy making, but something that will have an impact at the regional, at the national, and at the international level. So I distinguish perhaps two types of leaders: those who seek to manage, managers of migration that are usually found at the higher level, and those who seek to govern migration interactively, collaborating with the civil society at the local level, multi-level governance with other national, international, European bodies, and eventually, in a legitimate way, create policies that gives us, totally different understanding and governance of migration locally. If we manage somehow to understand that this is the right approach, bottom up, to see what are the alternatives that these people offer to us, maybe we are going to be able to improve our policies at a higher level of government. I don't hide my head in the sand. I see that the numbers are very limited, but this is the idea that local political leaders doing interactive work like this indeed show alternative that is worth pursuing. Thank you.
This is so wonderful to hear. Because I indeed very much with Share, having engaged so long with local communities, it's the examples, the leadership that makes the difference. And a growing Share in these last 10 years, we have seen that this is a community that grows and inspires each other. So thank you so much, Theo, for these remarks. I also wanted to mention that the mayor of Fundão, talking about political leaders in hosting refugees, is here with us, and I hope that we still have a moment to give the floor to you, and welcome to be with us. You are an inspiration. Okay, I go back to Leah. I think another inspiration is that there are new networks emerging that try to make a difference in solidarity and mobilizing support for both welcoming communities and better conditions for migrants and refugees. I give you a moment to present your network and tell what you're doing, and also, please, the context in community sponsorship that you would like to highlight.
Primero me gustaría agradecer mucho al gobierno del País Vasco y a ICMC por la oportunidad. Creo que voy a tratar de hacerlo en inglés, pero puede pasar que haya problemas entre español e inglés. Bueno, ANVITA is for National Association of Welcoming Cities and Territories. It's a French network of local authorities. It means all level of governance in France, cities, department, region. So you have almost like an overview of the welcoming cities, and there is in this room the Basque country but French version that adhere to our network as well. So the network has almost 4 years old. It's 2018, and now we count like 66 members of local authorities, and we have 4 main actions. The first one is really to animate a network so they can have exchange of practices, like more on a technical perspective. And we really want to collect everything so we can make tools for local authorities, trained, etc. So they get more idea of how they can really use their own competencies to welcome more a better condition. So this is the second mission, to really capitalize and give guidance for the local authorities. The third one is really to create partnership, to build partnership with all the stakeholders of migration in France and abroad, like researcher, NGOs, state, etc. And to propose projects, like individual projects for each member, so they can have training, etc. And the last but not least one is the advocacy work we want to have at national level about unconditional welcoming, about migration, and multi-level governance that we want to impose in France. France is a really centralized country, so local authorities have limited competencies, and this is the work we are doing, is to show that we can have complementary competencies as local authorities, and that if states, local authorities, and civil society work together, a dignified welcome can be possible. So yeah, we have advocacy work at political, and also a communication part to raise awareness to public opinion about migration. This is quickly what Anvita is about, and I have with me like guidance for welcome in France that I have a lot of example. If you want to have some, you can ask me. And so we decided to try to think what could be a welcoming territories, and we made it like a lot of practices in our territories and made 3 pillars so I just put the 3 pillars, like complementary pillars. It's important for us in our sense, so the welcome can be in best condition possible. So first, to talk about another vision of migration, about interculturalities. So yeah, I put some example of practices, but it can be like really simple, like animating social cohesion in your own territories, like with culture, the help of culture, but also information, communication, etc. The second one is really important as well, is unconditional access to right to people. So of course, local authorities cannot allow the access of all, because the first one is like a visa, etc. It did not depend on the local authorities, but you can use their competencies to access to school, etc., etc. So this is an example of exercising one's right, housing and sheltering, being healthy, learning, training, integrating. In all this area, local authorities can do things and can, yeah. And finally, and not the least as well, an inclusive local citizenship to facilitate that everyone in the territory can feel like a real resident of the territories. So yeah, I try to do it short, but if you have any question.
Yeah, Leah, thank you so much. And we have also with participating a bit, cooperating, trying to how can we make cities understand this concept of community sponsorship. And there's a lot of work to be done to reach out to make that understand. What is it? How can you do it? What can be your role? Give concrete tools. And I think that is the next phase also. We didn't address that now in your presentation, but yeah, you have an experience that you try to engage with your membership, but there are many things the cities are dealing with. Gisela. Very different association. Tell a little bit about your work and how you think that you could move this concept of community sponsorship further in your work, with your network of regions.
Muchas gracias, Petra. Muchas gracias por esta invitación. Voy a continuar en inglés para seguir un poco en línea con esta discusión del panel de hoy, ya que es una de las cosas de trabajar tanto tiempo fuera en el extranjero en estas mismas temáticas. So yes, I'm Gisela Guari. I'm working at the Assembly of European Regions. The Assembly of European Regions, AER, is a network of regional authorities, so directly we are working with the regional governments. We are a political association, so we are working also now within these regional authorities directly with decision makers at regional level. And they are the ones proposing to us, coming to us and proposing these topics that they want to, it's of the great issue and they want to work on it. We realized that several years ago that this is one of the challenges that all our regions are facing right now in Europe. Our membership goes not only at the European Union level, but also beyond the EU. So basically what we decided to do in terms of embracing and addressing these challenges in terms of inclusion and integration of migrants at regional level, we decided to firstly establish a task force, so a working group in which we are putting together, providing the platform for our member regions to exchange on their common challenges and then on their common solutions. So how are they facing these things? There was a common interest because our task force have only a running time of 2 years, more or less, so of a permanent structure, so more established dialogue to discuss on the integration of migrants. And that's when we decided, we approached the Council of Europe, and I'm going to talk about interculturality, as it's been also mentioned by several city representatives and other regional representatives today. We are working in cooperation with the Council of Europe. They already developed the Intercultural Cities Program, which is a program also that helping to approach the intercultural perspective, so bringing these type of, because interculturality, it's differently from other integration approaches that have been treated in several years, in the past years. Interculturalism is about giving access to migrants to create this sense of belonging, so trying to thinking in the long term. So it's been very nice to hear all the responses that you have been having, all of you at the municipal level and regional level, national level. But what happens next? This is the colleague from Valencia was asking before, what's the solution for afterwards? And that's what, when we decided to establish this intercultural regional network, following the Council of Europe principles and values of interculturalism. With this network, we're just providing the space for these regions to just exchange on the lessons learned and how to overcome the future challenges. We also established and implemented this year a project that EU Belong project, it's called. It's an EU-funded from the AMIF, the Asylum Migration Fund from the European Union. And basically what we're trying to do is helping 11 regional authorities to develop and establish their own intercultural integration strategies. Through this project, it will be the innovative part, this co-designing process, which it's quite now mainstreaming, but it's a reality. We have to do it. We have not only regional authorities working together and cooperating among each other, but also taking into consideration this local perspective, so the local stakeholders and the local actors that we were seeing also from other panels. And this is what we're bringing into the table with this project. Very shortly, perhaps afterwards I can address all the aspects.
Thank you so much. And I think there's a big role still for reaching out also to your members to also make them see that this community sponsorship programs can really also support diversity. Maria, at the end of this long day, we heard of the programs in Basque Country, Navarra, Valencia. So what is next? How can you have been following them? You have been an initiator of these programs from UNHCR from the beginning. And what do you see as next steps to make them grow across Spain, and how? What would be done in capacity building, structures, awareness raising? Give us some inspiration.
Pues me voy a permitir volver al español, poner la nota local en esta mesa. Bueno, muchas gracias en primer lugar, ¿no? Aprovecho la oportunidad para dar las gracias al Gobierno vasco y a ICMC para poder tener la oportunidad de participar también en este evento que está resultando muy interesante, muy lleno de contenido, he tomado muchísimas notas y esperemos que eso sea parte de los next steps, ¿no? Yo diría algo a lo mejor que suena a lo mejor muy brutal, pero diría se ha hecho mucho y todo está aún por hacer, creo, en muchas cuestiones, ¿no? Creo que es un momento clave en España para el crecimiento del programa. Como hemos visto a lo largo de hoy, hay 3 experiencias piloto en marcha. Los números de personas que llegan a España solicitando protección internacional no han dejado de crecer en los últimos años y como apuntaba Sofía esta mañana al mencionar, ¿no?, la publicación del informe de tendencias globales, no parece que eso vaya a cambiar próximamente. Estamos en un momento en que en respuesta a eso también todo el sistema estatal de respuesta a las necesidades de protección internacional está siendo revisado, está cambiando, redimensionado. La situación de Ucrania, la respuesta a las personas que han tenido que huir de Ucrania, como ya hemos visto también, nos han abierto muchas oportunidades de avanzar. Y vemos, entre otras cuestiones, en España muchas comunidades autónomas, muchas regiones y muchos municipios que quieren ser parte de la respuesta, una vez más, y que además quieren ir más allá de la respuesta de emergencia, porque ven que es necesario desde el ámbito local. ¿Qué vemos como próximo paso? Pues esa definición de un marco nacional que permita que estos programas sean sostenibles a largo plazo, y esa es la visión de la ACNUR. Con esa visión hace 3 o 4 años tomamos la decisión de tratar de prender la mecha, que aquí se ha tomado, la verdad es que de una manera que ha sido una respuesta excepcional, a una velocidad que a todos los implicados creo que nos hubiese gustado que fuese más rápida, pero también nos tenemos que adaptar a los tiempos. Y creo que ese marco nacional pues requiere que se establezca un marco de instrumentos jurídicos y de gestión que permita que cualquier comunidad autónoma, municipio que quiera poner en marcha este tipo de iniciativas lo pueda hacer de una manera ágil, con un respaldo adecuado y con un realismo detrás de las capacidades que hay en cada ámbito para participar. Tenemos que estandarizar procesos, tener también, creo que también se ha aparecido esta mañana, un marco claro de financiación y de asunción de la responsabilidad financiera entre los distintos actores. Incorporar mecanismos para escalar en todos los aspectos, en cuanto al número de actores locales, de regiones, de municipios, en cuanto al reto de aumentar el número de sponsors, de grupos locales, las organizaciones sociales implicadas en los programas en los distintos territorios y también las personas refugiadas que participan. No creo que eso sea un problema, pero sí son programas que tienen que estar preparados para la diversidad. Por ahora están muy centrados en el perfil Siria, que es el que está llegando en el marco del programa de reasentamiento, pero también desde la ACNUR es un reto el que España se abra a otros perfiles de personas refugiadas que llegan bajo programas de reasentamiento. Mecanismos de seguimiento y evaluación nos parecen fundamentales, más allá de la evaluación puntual. Y solo por apuntar que creo que en todo este proceso no podemos perder oportunidades tampoco, perder oportunidades de incluir elementos de participación e inclusión en todos los procesos, es decir, en el diseño, en el seguimiento, en la evaluación y en la mejora continua de estos programas, incluir a todos los actores que están participando en todas esas tareas y sobre todo creo que es muy importante incluir a las propias personas refugiadas y a los grupos locales, ¿no? Creo que es muy importante que tengan un papel relevante, porque si no corremos el riesgo de perder la esencia de estos proyectos. El dar una solución duradera a las personas refugiadas y el implicar a la ciudadanía también necesita de que participen y estén incluidos en todas las fases de diseño y de evaluación, ¿no? es muy importante que no perdamos la oportunidad de incluir elementos de comunicación y de pedagogía. Y a esto me refiero el que para crecer hace falta el que se muestre el ejemplo, y no tanto a nivel de comunicación, que también de la historia de éxito, sino a nivel de comunicación a quien quiera implicarse de la realidad, de lo que implica implicarse en el patrocinio comunitario, y de que como regiones, como municipios, como grupos locales, reconozcamos si se tienen las capacidades en el ámbito local correspondiente y comunitario para dar una respuesta adecuada. Flexibilidad, porque hablamos de procesos estandarizados, pero luego hemos visto que es muy importante esa flexibilidad para la adaptación al ámbito local, y si nos perdemos en establecer procesos muy estandarizados, también perdemos otra vez la esencia de estos programas. Y nada más, simplemente también aprovechar las estructuras existentes que están muchas veces presentes ya a nivel local y que no siempre, por ahora estos programas piloto han crecido desde, de alguna manera, unos mecanismos muy excepcionales, pero si tienen que ser sostenibles, tienen también que incorporar las estructuras que ya existen, ¿no? Y como último comentario, creo que hemos visto que un mayor papel de los municipios y explorar también la incorporación del sector privado, ¿no? en los programas, tanto para apoyar el crecimiento de los programas como en este punto tan importante que es el empleo, ¿no? Buscar fórmulas para que el sector privado se corresponsabilice. Creo que con el tema Ucrania tenemos una oportunidad en ese tema. Ha habido una respuesta muy llamativa del sector privado en la situación de Ucrania. Estamos, creo que todos, y también se ha dicho esta mañana, trabajando porque esa respuesta no sea solo para Ucrania, y es una oportunidad muy importante para incluir el sector privado en cuanto a oportunidades de empleo en estos programas, porque son parte importante del momento de la salida, ¿no? Pues eso, como he dicho, se ha hecho mucho y todo aún está por hacer.
Gracias para estas conclusiones, y pienso que el parte de flexibilidad es algo que en el Red Share todo el tiempo estamos hablando, como el balance entre flexibilidad y calidad. Sorry, I will then that links very good to going back to Theo. So we are thinking about that. The sponsorship is very niche, and thousands have different ideas about what it means. So you are limited in the extent that you can push this concept in a consistent manner. That is something that we have been struggling with SHARE. We have an idea, we have complementary pathways, and we have resettlement. So we link admission to receiving refugees, hosting refugees, in welcoming community and supporting integration. Other people, they say, oh yeah, I have 5 volunteers here supporting a refugee, I'm doing sponsorship. So this idea of, is it integration? It's an integration tool, engaging citizens, or linking it consistently with legal pathways. Give a bit of thoughts about that. What way do you think, from the research, would be the opportunity to move forward?
I think undoubtedly there are opportunities now with the arrival of Ukrainian refugees in Europe, but in my view the risks of just watering down the concept are more at present. I think that the concept of community sponsorship, when we use it, we already have made a step back, in my opinion. We have compromised initially, and we have accepted in pretty much all the countries that implement it. Be careful, we took the model from Canada, which has additionality, but we didn't adopt this additionality in other countries. So we made one compromise, and we decided, okay, this is acceptable for us, we are going to do it for a certain period of time, and this is going to be community sponsorship. Now we have the arrival of Ukrainians, and now we have some attempts also to somehow broaden further this concept and say, okay, I also use volunteers. I have this group locally. It helps Ukrainians that arrive on temporary protection directive status, and this is also community sponsorship. So where are we going to? I know that we can, in this way, maybe popularize more the concept. Perhaps more people, which is very important, will get to know about it. But to what extent are we willing to compromise in this respect? Here we are at the crossroad. We have the European Commission that told us in 2020 with the European Pact on Migration and Asylum that politically they are ready to engage with this. They are ready to put forward the concept and implementing community sponsorship in Europe. Financially, they are also committed somehow, to some extent, to invest in it. Then we have the European Union again publishing its action plan on integration. Again, the same thing. So obviously there is political will at the highest level. There is also some finances. To what extent we, as a community that is interested in community sponsorship, are going to broaden the concept and decide to implement it anywhere in any and anyhow, or we are going to stick to some principles that we had from the beginning and try to implement it, even though in the harder way, perhaps in the more beneficial way for those who ultimately benefit from this thing in Europe. And the European Union talked about European approach to community sponsorship. Now think about the fact that the experience of Valencia is different than the one in Navarra, and then different than the one in the Basque Country. So are we talking about the European model of community sponsorship? Is this thing possible? Do we have to even invest in something like this? Or maybe stick to some initial principles and try to act locally, perhaps at the national level and not more? This is a question, not really an answer.
No, and I think it's an extremely important question. Life happens while you're making other plans. And the Commission also, of course, has made a number of plans, but I think we have to have a longer term view and stick to certain principles. So that's why I'm very happy that you are saying that, and we will follow that discussion tomorrow when we look for the future. What are indeed the recommendations we can make for a longer term vision? So think about that. What would you think in that context? Just very quickly, because it will be the last round, and I'm already late for the other ones. So, Leah, we discussed also before, it's not so easy to work with your cities and make this plan of sponsorship to sell that to your members. And what do you see the opportunities with your experiences, with your practices, on how to get that in your network and make that grow? Horrible question.
Well, to be honest, I learned a lot during these 2 days because it was a bit confusing, the term of community sponsorship for me. And so from 2 days ago till today, I changed a bit my intervention to adjust. But to be honest, I'm going to put that. It's true that, as you in the name of the roundtable, it's written decentralized, and I think it's a really important point. And as I said, in France, it's really centralized. So I try to make like a list of what for me it's difficulties, but also a list of opportunities. I'm not sure. I think it will be interesting in our network to now that I understood well what is community sponsorship, to explain exactly and then to understand everything. But still, for me, the difficulties is that it depends a lot on the cooperation with the states, because it's the states who give the support with the paper, which is really important to the access of to rights. And yeah, so it will be one thing to check if states is really on board to work with local authorities on that, if there is a political will, because we saw that with the Ukrainian crisis, we see how we can do like humanitarian corridor between Poland or to France, and we didn't feel like a strong political will on the part of the state. So yeah, it's something that we need to check. Then we need to talk about the limited competencies of the local authorities in France. Mainly today in France, when a city provides sheltering or housing, it's really a political will, because it's not on its competency, and it's really a really good effort and they are doing that in our network, but they are doing that. But there is a lot of people needing housing in France, like in many countries, of course. So the idea that it's really limited means that they have it to disposal. Another point is not a limit but a challenges. I think, it's really important, because we saw that also in Ukraine crisis. There were a lot of what I can understand that is really close to community sponsorship, because people arrived here in France, Ukrainian, and they were welcome in the community, and the local authorities could be a really good support with that. But the fact a lot of local authorities don't have a really good overview of the people arriving in their territory, so I think it's really challenge to really communicate and create a real platform. I don't know how to call that, but locally to all the actors can work together. And another point, not the least, is the read that in France we are still trying to call for action for the state to take its own responsibility. So I don't know at what point cities are really on board to really engage themselves in this type of program that really say we're going to do in place of the state. So this I don't know how to call that fight with the state is still really pregnant. Prégnant. I don't know how to call that. Like prégnant. Like really current, like a current theme. And what I was thinking this morning, so it's not in the slide, is like we as a network are working unconditionally welcome. So migrants with paper, without paper, and so. In these moments, local authorities in our network are really fighting to give a good welcome reception condition for a lot of people. So we are trying to change the standards so that we don't have to give access to some right to some category of people. We can have the status of refugee, which is really great to have that, but we try to generalize to all people. So being in such a program can be also like I don't know if some population already in the territory can feel threatened that they don't have the same access to all these conditions. So this is, I start with the limits, but I say that they can have another benefits. For example, and I can see local authority in France more like a support to this kind of program. I don't know if financially, but at least, for example, they have a strong political will to this kind of program. Of course, they're open to reception and good condition, etc., etc. And I would say that more than financially, I don't know, as I told you, like if they can support, but I know that there is, as I told, like in this guide, a lot of competencies that they can really apport to like domiciliation of people, scholarization, even some subsidize a bit like to alimentary issue, etc., food issue. So I think it can be really important. This kind of community sponsorship can be more like a partnership, maybe not in the same way as we saw here, because here I can see that the Basque government is really giving a really great support. I don't know, as I told, but I think there can be a partnership. Also, another benefit that can local authority on board is that they have a really ability to convey a political message, to mobilize. So I think, as we saw in the Ukrainian crisis, the city was the place who was collecting all of the money first, of the gift to people, but also the food, etc. So they have an ability to mobilize the citizen of the territory. But also they can afford like some professional long-term they can coordinate. They have the staff normally inside to at least help with the coordination with the actors, or the orientation to answer to some special needs, etc. So I think, it can be a way to think about how they can support. And I thought, when I heard the discussion this morning, that what I was talking about is like in big cities, where the housing problem is really strong, etc. But I think in a rural area, maybe it could be an opportunity as well if the state is on board and is giving like a visa or a refugee status, or when there this problem of paper away. People, if there is a need of territories, there is a big community, a capacity of big community in a rural area. We have some example in France, like Le Vigan, etc. Like I think rural area can be an option about solidarity and coordination. So, thank you.
Just getting back to the rural, indeed the rural territories, because I know that Anvita also has rural areas. We were also discussing now with Navarra, and I think that Berriak from Ireland also said that indeed in smaller municipalities where people know each other much better and where, of course, housing is more available, there are many very good examples. And in France, the humanitarian corridor program, which we haven't addressed in the French context because the colleagues from the Fédération Protestante couldn't be with us, they essentially are working in these very small places in rural departments that also produce revitalization of these areas and have a very good engagement. It's a subject on itself, and we have a big work to be done. We work also in this rural integration. But okay, let's keep it for. I really want to thank you very much. I'm sorry that the program is a bit packed. I think that we had a very interesting contributions and other ideas. It's not so easy, but there are things to be done, I think, in a longer, consistent manner. And we haven't talked about the funding, the European Union funding, and the national AMIFs, because that remains a mystery. What can we do? But we will address that tomorrow in part of the recommendations for the coming period. So national AMIF, the links with other funds. So thank you so much for your contributions. And then we have we have to invite the last round.